There's something exciting about this Corolla, and it's not just the fact that it has a lot more power than your Nans. No, it's the fact that the GR Corolla now comes with an automatic gearbox, which improves its everyday usability, which is one of those things that sort of sports cars sometimes fall a little bit short on. Toyota's actually updated a few other things on the car, which we'll run through in the rest of this video. But if you ever thought that this car was maybe a little bit too hardcore to be cross-shopped with something like a Golf GTI, I have great news for you, so stick around.
The 2025 Toyota GR Corolla comes in just one grade now, the highly spec'd GTS, which starts from $67,990 plus on-road costs for the 6-speed manual variant. But it's now also available for $70,490 with a new 8-speed automatic. While the GTS has plenty of features for the price, they're not all focused on the comfort of the interior. For example, the synthetic leather and suede sports seats are manually adjustable even though they're heated. The 8-inch multimedia touchscreen is similar to that in the standard Corolla too, plus dual-zone climate, USB-C ports, the wireless phone charger, and the JBL audio system are all pretty expected features of a hatchback at more than $60,000. The Corolla does however also gain heating for the leather-wrapped sports steering wheel, plus leather trim for the parking brake and shifter too. It also has aluminium pedals. There's a lot more under the skin when it comes to the GR, some of which is also visible via the controls in the cabin, but we'll come to that.
The changes to the GR Corolla are mostly under the skin, but there is one thing that you'll notice if you see the post versus the pre-facelift version, and that is this front bumper. It's been revised to allow for more cooling. There's a lot of air sort of flow that comes in through these side vents here. It's all kind of been done to make that automatic gearbox a little bit easier to cool down, but the manual versions also look like this as well.
The only downside to that is the changes are relatively minor from some angles. If you weren't aware of the GR version, you'd still need to see the GR Corolla from the front, or spot that center exhaust exit at the back to know something was up.
Not only does the interior of the facelifted GR Corolla look a lot like it did before, it also still looks a lot like the interior of a regular Corolla. And if you're thinking everyday usability is kind of one of the things that is concerning you about the way that this car used to be, that's probably not a bad thing. It's got things like a wireless phone charger. Its screen is possibly starting to feel a little older just in terms of the actual, the way it looks, but it's still pretty functional. The driver display in front of you also nice and clear, and everything ergonomically just makes sense. It's all very Toyota in here. But one of the biggest things that you'll probably find is different is this little button here, which is the gravel, track, and normal drive mode selector, which actually alters how the front and rear wheels work when you're driving. I'll get a little bit more into that later when I'm actually on the road though. For the sake of the visualization, I just wanted to show you what the back seat looks like as well. It's, mostly a regular Corolla as far as this space goes, but I'm 5'11" and I fit in here behind my own seating position pretty nicely. My toes are a little bit snug under the seat in front of me maybe. Heaps of knee room, a little bit of headroom. There's also this armrest with a couple of cup holders here. There's also a 12-volt and a USB-C plug there as well. Cup holder in the door too, so things aren't too bad back here, aside from the fact that not much light gets in here because even these windows have a fairly high shoulder and the rear window is pretty small back here. All the dark colors in the interior probably don't help there either, but realistically this probably isn't going to be the family hauler, so it's not like kids or anyone really is going to be spending a lot of time back here.
The GR Corolla's 1.6-litre 3-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine is now a little torquier than before. Outputs are now 221 kilowatts and 400 newton meters, thanks to an extra 30 newton meters. The G16E GTS engine is now able to drive the Corolla's 4 wheels through a choice of gearboxes, either the existing 6-speed manual or an 8-speed automatic, that being a torque converter. As well as the usual drive modes, Eco, Normal and Sport, the Corolla's GR4 all-wheel drive system is able to split the torque to the front or rear wheels via its limited slip diff. Normal, track and gravel modes can distribute drive either 60-40 to the front and rear in normal, 53-47 in gravel, or variably depending on conditions and the need for acceleration in track mode.
The power figure remains the same, but there's a little bit of extra torque as well, and even though you'd be pretty hard pressed to pick it, it's probably doing just a little bit of extra work when it comes to that delivery. But I've been driving a manual and this is the automatic. And I wasn't exactly sure what to expect, but I'm really impressed with the way the automatic works. At first I was a little annoyed by the sort of plasticky feeling of the shifters, and as you shift down, they sort of feel a little bit like a computer mouse or a keyboard click. rather than something you'd expect out of a sports car. But the gearbox itself shifts really well. It's rather quick and it's really responsive. When you do pop it into manual mode, you get a nice little thrummy rush of sort of engine noise, and it sounds a little bit like this engine might have been taken out of a rally car. And even though this car itself doesn't feel as much like a rally car for the road as its younger Yaris brother does, it's really capable once you get onto a tight, twisty road. The update to the way that its differential works when it's sort of deciding where to put the power to the front and rear wheels is really capable when it comes to making sure that there's the right amount of grip at each sort of corner of the car. You get this little display in front of you that shows where the sort of power and torque is being sent to the wheels, and it sort of gives you like a good idea of sort of whether you're in a rear bias or a front bias mode. And even though when you're driving around in normal mode, which is a little bit more front biased on a twisty road, you feel the rear end moving around a little bit and it feels a little bit less tied down.
My biggest issue with the pre-update GR Corolla was it felt a little too stiff in terms of suspension to be a daily driving car. The updated car felt more compliant without sacrificing ability and seemed much more suited to daily duties. Toyota's product team confirmed there had been tweaks made to the rear suspension geometry and that I wasn't just imagining it. On top of that, if the engine and exhaust noise is a bit too much for you on the commute, Eco Mode now dulls the sound of the exhaust just enough to be neighbour friendly at 6 AM.
But leaving everything in normal, the gearbox, the drive mode, as well as leaving it at sort of that front bias mode, does make the car actually quite easy to drive around in just normally. Haven't really spent any time in the city, obviously, on this launch, but I feel like it wouldn't be any different from driving around in sort of, you know, something like maybe a Golf GTI when it comes to sort of the power delivery and the way it feels. Its suspension is a little bit stiffer than a car like that, but if you were, you know, really ready to sort of commit to it, I think you could probably do it every day. On top of that, the Corolla coming in just the sort of GTS grade, which, you know, in its younger brother Yaris is the higher of the two specs, means things like the brakes really hold up well. We were driving really hard, a lot of twisty roads, up and down mountains, the gradients and sort of the speeds we were doing. We were sort of working on the brakes really hard and they didn't wear out at all, actually. And I think that's really impressive. Especially when you consider that, you know, this car's not cheap, but it is a car that feels track ready for under $100,000. Significantly, I should add.
Toyota's claimed fuel consumption for the GR Corolla with manual transmission hasn't changed from the previous 8.4 litres per 100 Ks, which isn't bad for a sports car. With the Auto, Toyota says it burns through the fuel rather more quickly though, at a rate of 9.5 litres per 100 Ks. The GR Corolla has a 50-litre fuel tank and needs 98 RON fuel to run. The Corolla's not lacking in safety kit, with a healthy list of passive and active features, as well as a series of 7 SRS airbags and 3 ISOFIX points along the rear seats. ANCAP tested the non-GR Corolla in 2018 and awarded it 5 stars, though that score is now outdated. It's not clear if the car's updated tech would manage 5 stars again, though the car is clearly structurally sound. Toyota offers a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty plus an extra 2-year warranty on the GR Corolla's engine and driveline. There's also a capped price for the first 3 years of servicing for the GR Corolla, $310 per service. The downside to that servicing arrangement is the intervals are 6 months or 10,000 Ks, whichever comes first. More regular than a usual schedule, and it means potentially pricier servicing for the 7th onwards. I mentioned I've been driving a pre-facelift Corolla, and my 2 biggest gripes with it were the suspension being a little stiff and my passengers complaining about the noise. The update has indeed addressed those 2 points, and the performance updates are just a bonus to what was already an excellent car. The GR Corolla had a lot to live up to before. The likes of the Yaris and 86 fit their briefs so well. Now, with a little more daily usability and a little more performance, the Corolla is even better at both sides of its Jekyll and Hyde personality.